Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with an introduction to the series, The Greatest Recordings Ever Made, period. Well, a lot of you have asked this. I guess it was bound to happen because we've done, repertoire things and reference recordings and Dave's faves and all that stuff. And all of that recommends marvelous recordings. I mean, they're just gobs of them. And to make your life easier, some have said to me, there was a comment just yesterday, please do a series on just the greatest recordings of everything ever made. And I've wanted to do it, but I've hesitated for a couple of reasons. The first is that I've done a lot. There are we're approaching 4,000 videos. Let's put it that way. We're at 3,800, something like that. 790, I don't know. I got to go look. But the bottom line is, I haven't wanted to repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. I mean, if we talk about Beethoven's Fifth, there's a repertoire video and it comes up to a bunch of other things. There's a favorite, there's a thing, and so we know what the great recordings are. We've gone through that. And so to talk about specific repertoire and to do it risks, I think, turning a little bit monotonous. On the other hand, I do want to do it for less known repertoire because some of the greatest recordings ever made have been of things that many people haven't heard of, number one. Number two, I have no problem repeating recommendations of recordings that aren't that well known or composers that aren't well known and deserve to be better known, because the only way they're going to get better known is if you talk about them. And that means repeating certain things. And I know it's really pretty sensible. I know some of you have been with me from the beginning, and I admire your fortitude beyond belief. I really do. But most of the time, I know what happens. This is the world of classical music. You talk about an unusual composer, an unusual recording. It's one video out of 4,000 videos, and it goes into the vault, and then nobody sees it again because they have to actually look for it. They don't even know to look for it if they've never heard of it. So unless I talk about it again, it's never going to come up. So I really have no problem doing this for recordings that are a little bit off the beaten path. And that really are that great, because a great recording is its own justification. And I think everyone should own all the great recordings, irrespective of whether they know the music or don't know the music, or if your job, that is, if your desire is to create a library of the greatest recordings ever, then it really doesn't matter what they are. I don't have to do it by repertoire. I'll do it by whether or not I think it's one of the great recordings ever. And I think that would be a lot more fun. There'll be a lot more discovery and a lot more discussion of worthy artists and worthy labels and worthy recordings and people who've done fabulous work, but that otherwise haven't been recognized. So I'm all in on that aspect of it. And so this is what I envision the series as being. A lot of neglected repertoire where there really are great recordings. Because when you're doing neglected repertoire, as I've said before, it needs special pleading. It's not always enough to just have a good, solid performance that sort of gives you a sense of what the work is. I mean, you want to have a great performance of it that really sells the product. So that's that thing. And then, of course, we will do some basic repertoire stuff as well. We will. But I'm going to be very selective about that because, the basic repertoire has gazillions of wonderful recordings. And if I do the consensus great recording pick, which may not be the same as the reference recording, by the way, we're talking these subtleties and whatnot, it just may not turn out to be that interesting because everybody's discussed it ad nauseum. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I am not going to do one of those the 100 best recordings ever that everyone must own or something like that, because it's an open-ended question. It really is. And things are being added all the time. And like everything in the world of music, it's a little bit fluid. There may be things that have been taken off the list and added to the list over time. And I don't think there's any point in limiting the discussion. I mean, I think we should have an open-ended discussion that we can do forever. And we could potentially add things to, and then we'll see where the list goes. We'll see how far we get. But I do guarantee this. It is going to be a real adventure in terms of the repertoire selections, because some of the very, very best recordings are of music that isn't as well known as I believe it ought to be. And that is, I think, the real service that I can do. Anybody can make a list of great recordings. I mean, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. But to do a list that I think has this mix will create something that's, consistent with what we've been doing since the beginning, and that makes, I hope, this channel somewhat special compared to, all the other, classical music channels on YouTube, and that really will help you to build a collection. If you really want the best stuff, because it's the best stuff, that's what we're going to go for, to the extent that I can do it. So get ready, because it's coming down the pike. It's taken a lot of thought and a lot of consideration, and I've got the first batch ready to rock, and we'll see where it takes us. So thanks for listening to this introduction. I hope it's not disappointing because I didn't talk about specific recordings, but I really think that this is such an important project that it deserves its own little introduction. And so this was it. So keep on listening and keep on watching, because we're going to do it. Take care.